Castlevania is my favorite game franchise of all time, and this is a fact that I've made all too clear in the past. I pride myself on the fact that I have played every commercially released game in the series to not be lost to time, including the patch slots, but we don't talk about those. Along with this, if you've been around me for long enough or follow my Twitter account, you'll also probably know that I have quite the soft spot for the Shin Megami Tensei series. Cut to 2017, and Atlus releases this trailer announcing Shin Megami Tensei Deep Strange Journey, or Strange Journey Redux as it's called outside of Japan. A remake/remaster of the vastly superior DS original. But then, all of a sudden, we see a side-scroller starring Jack Frost and Pyrojack. And it's a Metroidvania at that. I was hyped. And then the trailer continued, revealing that it was just a joke. But oh shit, plot twist! Turns out you, the player, were the real joke all along. Because not only was this game real, but it was completely free. This is Shin Megami Tensei Synchronicity Prologue. SMT Synchronicity Prologue was, as I mentioned before, a free Metroidvania developed by Team Ladybug, and it was pretty damn good. But note the past tense. The game was no longer available for download after the 24th of December 2017. But thankfully some absolute legends took the game and re-uploaded it on their own. And now the game can be re-downloaded. So I'm going to put a download link to the game as well as an English translation patch into the description, so you can play it right now. With the formalities out of the way, let's get into the story. It exists. It's nothing special, but it's there to drive the gameplay forward. Now we can finally talk about the gameplay. In Synchronicity Prologue, you play as both Jack Frost and Pyrojack, and can freely switch between them. Let's start with Frost. Jack Frost can walk, crouch and jump. If you charge his attack, you can freeze enemies in place, and he can also absorb ice attacks. Later on in the game, you can also get everyone's favorite password demon, Demoniho, which replaces the ice attack with a gun attack, but keeps the ice immunity intact. If your character is immune to an element, it absorbs that element and also replenishes your MP. The other playable character is Pyrojack. He doesn't have any legs, so instead of walking he floats, allowing you to cross over big spiked floors and to get to high-reaching platforms. He absorbs fire attacks and deals fire damage. His charge attack is one big fireball. By this point I've mentioned elemental damage at least 7 times, so I'll quickly explain it. Much like in any other Megaten, this game too features elements. In this game they are gun, fire, ice, electricity and wind, and every enemy has their own weaknesses and resistances. Throughout the game you'll be able to pick up these skill gems that will let you use a spell for one of the elements, and they're all pretty useful in their own way. You can also find items that increase your overall HP and MP, as well as buying items at the Gnomes' shop. The bosses are by far the hardest part of the game, the Karabia in particular, as they force you to abuse the gimmicks of the current area, as well as testing your skill with switching between the two brothers. They are insanely fun to fight, especially on hard and very hard. There are 6 areas in this game, all of which are based on parts from sectors of Strange Journey. And they all feature some really nice original tunes, minus the first one, which is a remix of Strange Journey's boss theme, and the boss theme in this game, which is a remix of the Shin Megami Tensei 1 boss battle theme. They're all pretty damn good, though I did replace some of the music for my personal enjoyment. The game takes a lot of very obvious inspiration from both Castlevania Aria of Sorrow and Portrait of Ruin, which in some spaces is a lot more obvious than in others, for example with the character switching. So, all in all, this game is pretty damn good, especially when you consider that this was a free Metroidvania that was simply meant to be a joke promotion for a crappy 3DS remake. Yeah, I'd even go as far as to say it's fantastic, and it certainly has no right to be as good as it is. It's one of the best Megaten games we've had in recent years. My only real complaint with this game is that there's really only one save file, so so you either have to delete everything if you want to play under harder difficulty, or you have to copy your file in the personal folders and place it somewhere else to bring it back later on. With this, we've seen that Team Ladybug is more than capable enough of making a damn good game, even for free. But their real masterpiece is in what's essentially Synchronicity's spiritual successor, Touhou Lunar Nights. Now, I want to make it clear from the get-go that I'm not a big Touhou fan. I've played some of the mainline shooting maps, and I decently like them. However, I only really think that the music is good. I'd still rather play something like Ikagura or Sin and Punishment. Now, what I do like a lot about Touhou is the fan content. The remixes, fan games, and fan art, all pretty great. So, when I found out that the people behind Synchronicity Prologue made a Touhou Metroidvania fan game, well, I was excited. In fact, I yelled at my friend who was a pretty big Touhou fan for not telling me earlier, because he knows for a fact that I love Metroidvanias. But that's beside the point. I ended up getting the game while it was on sale for around $10 and got every achievement for it in around a week. Which is a thing I've only done with one other Steam game, that being the Mega Man 0/ZX Legacy Collection. This game is, as I mentioned before, basically a spiritual successor to Synchronicity. You play as the only good character in the entire franchise, Sakuya, and you have some slick-ass time manipulation abilities. If you hold the attack button down and release it once the meter is fully filled up, you can slow down time, which allows you to easily evade incoming attacks, of which there is a lot in this game, which makes sense when you consider this is an offshoot of a bullet hell. You can also use the lunar clock. This allows you to completely freeze time. Enemies will no longer be able to move and water can be walked on. And every attack of yours will stand still and shoot off the second you let time move again. It works on a counter and can be filled up by grazing, however I'll get to that later on. It's a really cool mechanic, and it's incredibly fun as it allows you to approach enemies in different ways that you usually wouldn't. Your regular attack also allows you to throw out several knives directly after one another, and it gives you this incredibly satisfying animation. Once again, the game takes a lot of inspiration from Aria of Sorrow, especially when it comes to some of the enemies and the way snail time works. Though some of the Portrait of Ruin inspiration is still definitely there, which is especially obvious with the single strongest move in the game. Like in Synchronicity, there are once again special moves that are pretty useful depending on the situation. But by far the strongest of these is 1000 daggers, or as it's called in Portrait of Ruin, 1000 knives. This move is incredibly powerful and can decimate bosses within seconds. All because of the way the game's main mechanics work. You see, getting dangerously close to an enemy or one of their attacks will allow you to graze them. Grazing an attack heals you, as well as recovering some of your MP. You need MP to attack, even regularly. So this basically lets you attack more and more the better you graze an enemy. However, when you graze during stop time, it will have an additional effect. It recovers your time meter, as I mentioned before. 1000 daggers lets you abuse this to an insane degree, because it gives you invincibility frames for the entirety of its animation, while still letting you graze everything. If you are smart enough, you can position yourself in a place where you will always hit your enemy while constantly being healed and never running out of MP. Which is why I highly discourage from abusing this strategy until you haven't beaten the game at least once. Because the bosses are actually really fun and learning their patterns is pretty cool and quite challenging. The music in this game is bloody fantastic, featuring a lot of remixes from Touhou 6 and I think 9 as well. And I really can't pick any favorites, so here are 2 of the songs in this game. Once again, much like in Synchronicity, there's also a shop, but this one has a catch. Instead of getting money from enemies you defeated, you get gems. You can sell these gems to Notori for money and buy items with that money. However, I don't recommend doing this, as gems give you a permanent passive stat boost, and they all stack. On top of this, the final boss becomes stronger the more gems you have sold, so go for it if you want a nice challenge. Lastly, there's a boss rush that you unlock after beating the bonus post-game area, and it's pretty neat. However, as I mentioned before, the 1000 daggers make this incredibly easy, though it's fun to speedrun. In conclusion, I give both Synchronicity Prologue and Touhou Luna Night my very highest recommendation, and I absolutely cannot wait to see what Team Ladybug will release next. Cheers!